And welcome back to another episode of the Collegiate Exclusive Podcast, where we got a lot to talk about today. A land qualifier later on, TJ, that you're playing with, so we can't mess around with the pleasantries of normally getting into the podcast with some chit chat back and forth. We got to jump straight into the action. So real quick, tell me how you're doing. 3 words or less.
Oh, wait, hold on. All right, I'm good.
Okay, good. You nailed that. All right. CRL has been announced, everybody. Officially, we have publisher-backed CRL. We were worried it wasn't going to exist for a little bit, but it does actually exist. And they gave us 2 weeks heads up on the first open qualifier for the league play format that they have that they've improved, I think, which I think is the biggest negative. But that being the biggest negative, TJ, is probably the greatest thing we've ever had in a CRL announcement.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. And they did listen. I will give the entire board or committee or whoever is running the show, I'll give them credit. They did listen for the most part. Now, granted, I will still say an announcement in February, tad bit absurd, especially with only 2 weeks to go before Open Qualifier 1. Yeah. But you know what? It could have been a week before. It could have been worse. It could have been January 1st. So at that point, I'm nitpicking. I think the big thing as well is that on top of an improved league play format, we also have an enhanced LCQ, and we get open 3v3 and open 2v2 tournaments.
Well, let's pull up the main CRL Spring 2026 hub website. That was muscle memory right there. But the format, I'm going to run through it real quick for those of you that haven't read through the announcement. I also read through the rule book last night because I'm a nerd, but I didn't see anything fun in there to point out and laugh at. It's all pretty standard. So real fast, here is the official CRL format for Spring 2026. First, we start on February 15th with the first open qualifier. That'll be 4 pools that everybody is divvied into. Each pool qualifies 2 teams into a 16-team league play. And we'll get to that in a second because we got to talk about open qualifier 2, February 28th. Same deal. 4 pools, 2 teams from each pool qualify into league play. And you are safe once you make it to league play. You don't have to play in these open 3v3 tournaments because what you're going to be doing is playing a 16-team round robin. That's right. Big league play is back. This actually feels like a league play and not just an 8-team round robin like we had the last semester. And so that'll be going for 5 weeks, 16 teams. Super stoked to have that. Then in the meantime, while that's going on, everybody else that is in that top 16 will be playing in the same open 3v3 tournaments we grew accustomed to last semester. They're happening March 12th, March 19th, March 26th. It's the same thing. 6 pools, only 1 winner, 1 team from each pool gets money. It's $300 to the winner, and you accrue points if you place top 4 in your pool. With those points, the top 8 teams, from the open 3v3 tournaments will face off against the bottom 12 teams that finish from league play in a double elimination last chance qualifier bracket on April 26th. And then there's also 2s, and the spring championship is 6 teams, double elim, all best of 7, CECC weekend, May 2nd and 3rd. TJ, did I miss anything?
No, it's a huge step up from last year and from many of the last few years of CRL. This is probably the best format I think we've been dealt with in a very long time, on top of getting the extra tournaments like the 2v2s. Also, again, that enhanced LCQ. Now, granted, is CRL going to schedule over all of your little mini tournaments and lands and all that? They always will. That's inevitable. But I will say, the spring championship being 2 days is a huge development, because having to play from about 5 o'clock to about midnight, if you were St. Clair and Winthrop, that is miserable, and that should never happen. So 2 days and more teams as well, getting the 6 in total, having the same top 4, the best teams in league play, and then whoever's left out of the whole rest of the mess that will be the last chance qualifier, those top 2 teams from there. It's big. Now, also granted, CECC weekend, of all the events that you could have scheduled over, probably top 1 worst event you could have scheduled over. I'm not gonna lie, but hey, I'll go out on a limb here and say maybe there's strategic behind that, because I don't know how else, like that. Those dates have been public for a long time. The CECC dates have been very public. It is also the premier collegiate esports LAN as it stands right now. So I'm not going to say foul play, but just odd. But outside of that, great, perfect. If they would have just told us a few weeks earlier, I'd have no complaints. But outside of those two things, really, really good setup for this semester.
Yeah, that was my reply, was 10 out of 10, literally everything except for the 2-week runway in getting prepared for the open qualifier. So that does suck, and I hope teams are able to deal with that and at least play one of the 2 qualifiers. At least give yourself that one chance to qualify and get those good reps in. But you do have the opens as well, which large majority of teams we play in regardless. So that's CRL. And honestly, I'm really excited about this semester. You know, this is probably the best format that we have had in a long time, maybe ever, because I love the open tournaments that are going on alongside league play. It gives you that midweek action when you got league play on the weekend. It's something for everybody. So, you know, it's we can talk about the late announcements and the late start to CRL, and that's about all we can do in covering the negatives here. So overall, I think we're satisfied, and that's CRL. So everyone go sign up. Maybe not right now, but as soon as you can, because you only have now 12 days because the countdown starts here. Any more thoughts on CRL, TJ?
No, I mean, I'm just looking at the chat messages. A lot of, very funny jokes about the scheduling. I'm not going to say anything for our auditory listeners because I don't want to spend too long on it. Overall, it's a positive. At the end of the day, regardless of how much I want to hate on the scheduling and the timing, it's a positive. So we'll take it.
And I do want to say one thing about chat. Chippy, CRL has heard of January. You must forget when they started with the first open
January
of last
1st.
Year on January 3rd. That was... that they know about January.
Yeah,
so I'll take a February 15th start over January 3rd. Anyway, we'll move along real quick. I did want to make some corrections from last week. They're not really corrections, more so clearing things up that we found out about in the middle of our show. And so there were 3 rosters that we didn't have the best information on when presenting it last week during our show. Number 1, Cumberland right now are playing with Hot Shot in place of NECC in the starting lineup. And from the information that we've gathered, this is a kind of trial period for this team. So Hotshot has the starting spot right now, but he's told me directly that he doesn't know if it's a permanent thing. So seems like Cumberland's going through a little bit of change right now, and we can talk about all 3 of them, all 3 of the roster moves here together. But Columbia College, they have Kazi now with Gusky and Rhyolite, not to be confused with Kamikaze, who is the Syracuse head coach and still a really good player. But this is Kazi. Rank X, 18-year-olds, and also a really good player. So make sure you use this spelling if you look them up. And then the third one, this was my screw up, so I'll say it again just to make sure. This is the starting lineup for West Virginia. I had Matter left out and Tool in his place, just thinking about old West Virginia lineups. So it's Gyro, Matter, and S5 Cosmic as the 3 West Virginia roster or players playing on the WVU team. Now that we got those corrections out of the way, that's a couple of significant roster moves. The Cumberland and Columbia stuff, I think, could have some pretty serious ramifications if Cumberland doesn't get set and if Columbia, actually realizes their potential this semester.
Well, not to also mention that if Hotshot was playing with Cumberland this past week, or at least this week and last week, Cumberland has had a pretty decent stretch of games, and we'll talk about it as we go, but an SEL especially had a incredible stretch of games, even taking out ETSU in 5, and what I'm assuming, based on what we know, was with Hotshot, because we were told he's playing with them right now. So we don't have total confirmation on that, but I like the way that roster seems to be developing together. I will also throw in, there is not a correction, but more of an add-on. Tennessee Knoxville will indeed be playing in the CRL qualifiers, and that will be the return of Jobro, Shaka, and Taibu. So there's your exclusive from Collegiate Exclusive right there. We're going to see Tennessee Knoxville back at it.
Let's get them some hours prior to that open qualifier. We got to get Shaka off Arc Raiders onto the game of Rocket League, and then we can get excited about that team. But for now, I'll temper my expectations for UTK retirement home. But we got more action to talk about because this is kind of the first official week of CRL action. We had NECC placements and the promotional tournament last week, which we previewed on the podcast. But we have results to talk about, and the placement tournament, TJ, I don't think either of us are going to have any strong feelings about. I think the biggest upset, honestly, it came in this section of the tournament with Daytona State 3-0ing Indiana, an Indiana team that finished in the top 30 in the last colleague poll of last semester. And so Daytona State, I think, is legit, and at the same time, Indiana maybe starting off a little slow.
I mean, this is a Daytona State roster that we kind of were expecting to be only on the decline because they had such a talented player in Ian leading the way. And honestly, he kind of brought this program to relevance, at least in our show, and how well they performed at NECC. So for Daytona State to kind of reform their team dynamic and take down a borderline top 32, top 48 team at times in Conestoga, and then to take down one of the better D1 schools in the nation in a perfect 3-0, it's a really, really perfect start for them. And it also was huge in their NECC division placement as well. I will also say that you brought up right before you kind of threw it to me, you said, is Indiana getting a slow start? And, you know, and Dylan's in chat, he's going to hate me for this. By the paper results, Indiana should not be going to 5 with Kennesaw B. They should not. By pure paper rank and also by wins that this team has gotten over the last few years together and on LAN as well, Indiana should be 3-0, 3-1ing every single time. So I think the fact that they were already kind of shaky going to 5 against Kennesaw B, maybe Kennesaw B is playing great. But regardless, Indiana has to be held to a higher expectation right now. Not to mention their school just won a national championship, so I'm going to throw that in there for fun. They got to be a little bit better than that. They got to have some Signetti ways.
Dude, you and on the CCS stream last night, I don't remember if it was Nation or Dronus that referenced it, but people are talking about this Indiana Rocket League team and the college football Indiana team in the same breath, like it has anything to do with each other. It's cracking me up a little bit, but I mean, I would say that Indiana have some expectations behind them, not because of what their college football team is doing, but because of what they did at the end of last semester with their CRL runs. But they took Akron Gold to 5 on the CCS stream last night. I watched that live, and I think that result looks a lot better for them than it actually was. It felt like Indiana was more punishing Akron Gold's sloppy play than actually playing that well. And then Akron Gold turned it on at the end like they always do. So Indiana got to shape up. I think that's all I'm seeing out of them right now. But we can keep scrolling because San Diego State handled business. Oklahoma beat Texas A&M. Pretty good result for Oklahoma, honestly. Shawnee State 6-0. Fisher Navy go to 5 with Bruton Parker JV and then beat Florida Southern 3-1. I think this section is also pretty significant here.
Yeah, not to mention that South Carolina, I won't say they got a free bracket, but they definitely got a more preferable bracket. So they handled business without much of an issue. Had to go against the Niner club team.
That's UNCC. That is the main team now.
They are now a club. I forget.
Yep.
Apologies. That's a good win for South Carolina to find that in state. I hope that I ranked South Carolina correctly off of that. I'll have to go double check before we get to that segment. But San Diego State 6-0, no surprises there. They have been one of the hotter teams, especially within the range of your top. I'll say top 32 comfortably right now with the way they're looking, and also taking down Oklahoma. I mean, that's a little test matchup, especially in a qual match like that. So no, very, very happy there. Also, Shawnee State received, I won't say a lot of hate or backlash because that's not a fair word, but they were definitely getting criticized heavily last semester and even right before that, ever since Spooky's been in the lineup, and they have a decent night. But no, we talked about it in our little preview. This Group E section with Florida Southern, Fisher, Bruton Parker, we knew that it was going to be close. I will say this, I really did not expect Fisher Navy. I didn't expect them to kind of have the start that they did, but also this is Fowles, Adam, and Tallybird who are representing Fisher Navy. So it's not a official B team. It's kind of a mixed roster of sorts because Adam had plenty of A-team reps. Fowles also had plenty of A-team reps last semester, and that roster as a whole is probably averaging right below rank X or something like that. I mean, those are 3 incredible players. So, I'm just glad they got their their team dynamic together, because I don't think I've ever heard of Talibird, Fowls, and Adam in the same breath. So good for them getting off to a good start. And for Florida Southern, it's a test match.
Yeah.
They'll get better. Not too concerned there.
This is essentially the Fisher starting team from last semester with Talibird instead of Royalis. And so I think it'll be a good team, and I'm waiting to see the results come in before I really rank them as such. But beating Florida Southern is a good start. BBC JV, not a bad win at all. But that's kind of the excitement of the rest of the bracket. Indiana goes to 5 with Conestoga here. A&M gets some revenge on Oklahoma. Florida Southern beats BPC JV. UNCC get their wins, and there's nothing else really happening in placement. So I'm down to move on to the D1 promo tournament if you're down, TJ.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, this was where all the action was on Wednesday. I streamed some of it before Wednesday Night Lights, and it was a banger of a bracket. I broadcasted Florida versus Winthrop Academy, as Winthrop Academy looked pretty strong against UF, and then ran into a brick wall of Davenport Red, who qualified for Division I. They beat St. Clair Gold and then beat Winthrop Academy to qualify, and St. Clair Gold, they managed to get to the lower bracket as well, taking down Florida and Winthrop Academy. And then Southeastern Oklahoma State did well, I think, to take Cleveland State and Carthage to 5. But Cleveland State was on a tear that night. They beat SE and BPCU, which this was the big upset, I think, of the evening, because Cleveland State are already building a resume for the spring.
And it also continues what has been kind of actually, I'll take that back. It's not kind of, it is a nightmare start for this Bruton Parker team. They really have struggled to find results against the teams that they should be. Like Bruton Parker coming out of last semester, I think it would have been fair to predict them as a team that would have been 1 or 2 matches away from qualifying for the new look league play with the way that they were playing.
Yeah.
I mean, now granted, Bruton Parker have had a history of really high ceilings and temporarily low floors. I hope that still continues, but again, we talked about this on the last episode. Moving Antics in for Manny, I still believe is the wrong decision, and until this team starts playing better than this, I'm still gonna hold that point very close. But Cleveland State deserves their flowers as well. That's a team that's been in and out of relevance because they don't get to play in too much outside of NECC, and I guess Bluegrass Boost Battle was the last big tournament they got to show off at. So I'm really happy for them and a really good stretch of games.
And our final series to talk about here was a pair of bangers, 2 Game 5s between Carthage and Bruton Parker. And shout out X-Ray for streaming the Carthage perspective, because if I didn't get to watch either of these 2 series, I would have felt so hard done by, because this one right here especially, which was at the time a qualifier match, that was such a fun set to watch that I went to Data Coach, which is our new partnership for this semester of the Collegiate Exclusive Podcast, and I was like, let's look into these series and see what advanced statistics we can pull from BPCU and Carthage. I sent them all 10 replays from the 2 matchups, and that brings us to our partnered segment of the week with Data Coach. And if you missed this last week, Data Coach is an advanced analytics tool. I'll bring some stats on screen to show just how complicated it is behind the scenes, but such cool stats that they can pull from replays. But Carthage beating Bruton Parker here. TJ, I felt like we had to dig into this one, because like you said, this is a slow start for Bruton Parker, and Carthage really popped off to find these wins.
I will say, as somebody who didn't get to watch this live and hasn't gotten to look at the replay, I literally just got out of class 30 minutes before this episode, guys. I apologize. I did not get to watch the Carthage Bruton Parker game, but what I will say is that the storylines that I think from my end of this podcast that I've been pushing about how is Bruton Parker going to look bringing Antics back after a year and a half kind of not playing the game as much and really kind of chilling with the academy side of things. I'm really intrigued to see the individual player stats, especially the development of Milk, somebody who I advocated for a long time and is probably one of the fastest growing prospects Bruton Parker has ever produced. So I'm really intrigued to see the individual stats. And also for those of you who are not familiar with Carthage, even though they had a really good stretch in Division II last season, now's your chance to see those individual stats. So I'm excited to kind of see What do the stats tell?
All right, well, I'm going to start by showing everyone the headache version of the stats because I'm a real nerd about this. So what Data Coach does is pulls pretty much every scoring instance from these replays and compiles it into data like this, where it pulls stats from the specific opportunity of the player that's on the ball. So right here, for example, Vale's on the ball. He takes a hook shot with 4 minutes and 20 seconds left in the game, and it's a shot. It doesn't score. This is the expected probability that the ball goes in, so it's a really low quality opportunity for Vale here. 0.04 on the expected goal stat. And so that means the hook shot that is probably being sent into a well-stacked defense and probably not going to go in, and it doesn't go in. And so that's the basis of what we are looking at here. And so across all of these replays between Bruton Parker and Carthage, and this does include the first series, not just the second one, but it shows a lot of popping off on Carthage's part. So if you look at the XG stat here, that's your expected goals per game. And on the Carthage side, you can see they're converting on a way higher percentage on what you'd be expecting them to actually be hitting here. So they were expected to get 1 goal per game in this first game against Bruton Parker and ended up scoring 2.7 here, I believe is what it is. But the moral of the story is that Carthage was popping off at a rate that we weren't expecting from them. And I'd like to show this graphic here where everything is broken down quite simply, because you can lose yourself pretty easily in the numbers, which is why Data Coach is so nice in compiling these figures in an easily digestible format, where we can compare the offenses in both of the series here, where that first series that Bruton Parker won, they were expected to score 1.9 goals per game. They score 2.6 per game, probably why they get out of there. They were converting on some lower quality opportunities and scored more than they were expected to, whereas Carthage were right around what they were expected, 1.4 goals per game on an expected 1.5. But that flips right around in that second series, TJ. And this is what's so cool to me, because watching this live, you could see kind of that Carthage was hanging on for dear life on defense, as Bruton Parker was putting up numbers like 2.2 goals per game here. It was a good series from Bruton Parker, but Carthage, they scored some incredible triple taps, double taps, low percentage opportunities on Bruton Parker's defense to convert way above what they were expected to. And that's the kind of X factor that you need to compete at the top level of CRL.
Well, and I think even going deeper than just the low percentage shots, I think what's more important is the Bruton Parker defense allowing those shots to come through. Like, granted, there was a lot of plays, and purely off the stats alone that I'm seeing, where Carthage was the better players for some of those shots, and they have that level of talent. They can absolutely put those in. But Bruton Parker, and especially whenever I saw antics on his time with the JV roster, and even in Bruton Parker against some of the better teams in the nation, they have issues where they get really aggressive. They build a lot of pressure. They do a really good job at that, and they've done that for years now. Really, for the last 4 years, they've been a top-level program. That's how they've won games. But then there's always an issue where on the back line, a third man gets caught midfield, and that tiny moment opens a counterattack. Or the third man gets up too far for a play that opens up a counterattack. So for Carthage, I mean, these are one of those series where I can say this from a player side of things. You're not lucky, but you will absolutely take it if Bruton Parker was struggling to put their shots in the back of the net, and also you were playing great defense as well. And the stats back that up. It's just crazy to me within the goal conversion percentage from Series 1 to Series 2 for Carthage. For Bruton Parker, it is unacceptable, regardless of if Carthage is peaking, regardless of if your defense sucks. It is night and day differences between what Carthage did to you in the first series versus the second one. And in terms of how you let a team adjust on you without adjusting back, I'm not sure what the answer is yet.
I think it kind of shows a contrast in the ability to perform in a high stress environment, because Bruton Parker last semester, and this is something that Bluey actually brought to my attention when it had come up enough on my stream that he started talking about it, where Bruton Parker lost something like 8 or 9 game 5s in the fall against quality teams, yes, but they would take these quality teams to game 5 and not be able to perform in that final game of the series. And here we're seeing that, because while we'll talk about this in a second, I don't know why this is the case. Bruton Parker did end up making it to Division 1 of the NECC, but in this moment against Carthage, this was a win and you're in D1, lose and you're in D2 type of situation in the lower bracket. And Carthage is the team that stepped up and were hitting the difficult to hit shots against Bruton Parker, defending well against a similar attack in that first series against BPCU that they had already lost. And they flipped that conversion right around. And I want to show it one more time, because Data Coach told us in our group that for that 91% to the 181% conversion percentage is one of the largest flips that he has seen in anything or any series that he has looked at with this tool. So Carthage really stepped it up, and I think they are going to be a team that we have to look out for going forward. Them and WCTC came up together last semester, TJ, and I think both are going to remain in the conversation of a threatening team in these CRL tournaments.
And I'm absolutely not going to take away from that storyline, but also as the podcast goes, I'm going to argue the opposite side of kind of what's at hand there. I also think, and I'm going to sound like a broken record at this point, but there is a world where Bruton Parker drops down the rankings, and instead of becoming a consistent top 25 team, we start having some really uncomfortable conversations about, are they getting replaced by all these new look rosters and all of these older Division 2 rosters who are now finding their way up the chain? You got to adjust with the times. Collegiate Rocket League has never, ever been winnable by using the same play style. Not since 2018, 2020, Northwood doing whatever the heck they wanted by signing pros. Like, it's not the same world anymore. And if you're going to make a roster move, it should have been for the better. And if you're not going to get those results, does Bruton Parker change back? Do they stick it out? Who knows what's going on over there? But I will also add this. These teams, as they're coming up, I hope that they have great coaching, because Bruton Parker, you mentioned the game 5s. We look at all these recent results. There needs to be either a stronger team captain, like on all these teams. It needs to be better coaching, better program, leadership. I don't know where you start right now, because it seems like there's a million things to try and decipher, but I'll let you get into the nitty gritty of the stats here.
Yeah, I saw Kung asking the question to explain the conversion percentage, and essentially it's whether or not you score a goal in a specific instance. And so the XG stats is the one I look at the most, because I love that we actually have a metric to look at quality of shot now within Rocket League. And so I'll put up the simplified version of the explanation and then show you the headache stats again, just because I like that, and I can use it as sort of an example. But so if a shot has a 27% chance of being scored, which Data Coach analyzes like defenders on the field, the positioning of the offense, positioning of the player on the ball, just the quality of shot in general, then it evaluates that and gives it the probability of being scored. And so that's your 0.27 expected goals value. And so if you score more than your expected goals in a match, you over convert. If you underperform, you under convert. That's where the 181% that Carthage put up comes from. But here's all of the data that we were given. There's a reason why we don't actually look at this and analyze it specifically, but you take these instances of opportunities. Data Coach gives you that expected goals value. So this was a pretty high quality shot, 50-50 if it goes in or not. Down here, we got this Antics goal, 83% chance of going in, and Antics scores it. And so if you were to miss this 83% chance shot of going in, then your conversion percentage is going to go down. And that's the sort of gist of it. And I would highly recommend checking out Data Coach, talking to the guy behind it, because I know he can explain it the best. And I think what's a lot of teams can gain from working with Data Coach is working with him and figuring out your team's issues that you may not see at the face value, that you may have to analyze this much data to actually figure out, but the human mind can't do that unless you're, I don't know, 4 Red Bulls in or something like that. So would definitely recommend checking Data Coach out. Let me find their graphic showing off the website, but we do have more to talk about, so I'll put that up very briefly for everyone to check out. But we're working with them more and more this semester because TJ and I are learning as we go what all you can do with Data Coach. But I really did enjoy the crazy swing and conversion percentage for Carthage here, and it got them in NECC Division 1, which we'll get to preview here in a second.
Yeah, and I'll also add some short thoughts before we get into that as well. Data Coach and the tool that he has created is probably the only thing that you can look at the stats and immediately correlate to specific storylines. Like, you cannot just look at the points in a Rocket League game. You can't even look at the stats in Barl and or Carl and just be like, yeah, like this is exactly what's wrong with the team. This is exactly what they should be doing. And if we want to sit down and look at the raw data, we could probably sit and tell you what Bruton Parker's issues are. But we only have so much time today. It would take a whole episode to go over the details like that, and probably then some. But either way, I just want to add in that we really, really appreciate Data Coach for his collaboration, and we're looking forward to more really interesting and great series. I mean, we've done all the way up to the St. Clair Winthrop Championship Series, and now we've done Carthage Bruton Parker. So the tool works for all levels, and it's going to give us some storylines to work with all year. Very excited to work with him. And
now that we're actually into the regular season as well, we get some even more high-profile matches to look at, and maybe some of these NACE matches from week 1 that we're going to preview real fast. This action is happening tomorrow for the majority of teams, and as always, League OS doesn't work well with our format on our podcast graphics, so I'll crop as we go. But here's what we got for week 1 here. Ole Miss St. Clair Gold in Group A of Division 1 of the NECC. Kennesaw State versus Akron Gold. Oklahoma Christian versus Davenport Red. And then the series off to the side here that you can't see is Fisher College versus Indiana Tech. And TJ, I mean, this is just week 1, and this is already a fantastic slate.
Well, NECC always has done the job of putting together the best collection of teams and talent. And normally the groups have always been, I would say, a little messy in terms of how they get kind of seeded. But overall, I don't think there's a single team, and OC technically on paper should be the team to stick out. Oh, yeah, I didn't even catch the Indiana Tech and Fisher over there. There's only a few select teams that should be kind of immediate standouts among this group. But for the rest of those matchups, there's a whole lot of coin tosses.
Yeah, this is just Group A as well. And so you've got the new coming St. Clair Gold. You've got the runners-up from fall Indiana Tech playing against the new-look Fisher College roster. Apparently, Dylan saying he might be super subbing for Kennesaw State here against Akron Gold. So, you know, we might get some Dylan action in Division 1. And in Group B as well, I mean, the stacked matches continue. St. Clair Green versus Carthage. We'll see if the boys can continue clutching up against St. Clair. Well, it's a big underdog story, but we'll cheer for them. And Concord versus Davenport, a top 15 match for sure. Bruton Parker versus Cleveland State, the rematch in best of 7 form. And then Leslie and Northwood, the rematch that Leslie won in the fall. I mean, we're getting all of this in just week 1.
Not to mention that there's going to be a point where Concord, Northwood, and St. Clair Green all have to go at it with one another with the mix of all these newer rosters like Cleveland State, like Davenport Black, like Carthage Red. These teams are going to get a chance to shine against literally some of the best of the best. Granted, is Group B harder than Group A? Make your arguments as you will. In terms of like overall balance, the groups are pretty balanced, but Group B is extremely top heavy. And with the new look rosters of Northwood and St. Clair and Concord, who didn't decide to make a big roster move, it's going to be really interesting to see, can they handle all of these new teams? And granted, that answer should be a-okay for now, but the bigger story is going to be with St. Clair and Northwood taking steps back with their thirds. How does Concord fare against them?
You wanna drop an early prediction of who wins these groups?
Wins straight out the 2 best teams in each group?
Like who wins Group A, who wins Group B?
Oh man. Okay. Group B, since we already have it up, I'm going to say it's Concord.
Yeah.
I really think out of pure consistency and also out of the overall talent across the roster, I think CMOS and Crispy can probably 2v3. I'm not going to lie. They can 2v3 a lot of these teams. And obviously, you know, Chase/Helix, that's my GOAT. He's going to play good as long as he gets his hours up, which I'm sure he's doing great right now. And with the way things stand, unless Zai keeps on developing to the GOAT that he's become, which again, love working with him. He's incredible. I don't see Northwood really putting a hand up to either team. I think it's going to come between those two.
Yeah, I think Concord as well is one of the best teams when it comes to taking these kind of league matches seriously enough to get the wins, whereas St. Clair and Northwood both in NECC last semester took some surprising losses with those old teams. So yeah, I'm with you with Concord. And then in Group A, I mean, Indiana Tech were demons of the NECC last semester, and Oklahoma Christian were demons of the NECC group play 2 semesters ago. So in my mind, I think either of them can come in here and take it, but them and Fisher are extremely heavy favorites out of the rest of this field. No offense to Ole Miss and Kennesaw State especially, but I think Fisher are going to be locked in everything they play in this semester, and so I'm going to drop Fisher as my prediction here.
I think I'm going to go with Fisher too, but I can hear out arguments for both because these two teams, in Oklahoma Christian and Fisher, they do not play until the very last round of Group A. They don't play until March 18th. I think this Fisher team is only going to get better. They're going to be battle tested by then. Both these teams should have CRL League play going on as well. And I think in terms of kind of the consistency and the brains behind these units, I got to go with the Royales-led team any day of the week. So yeah, give me Fisher in Group A.
All right, we're agreeing on our predictions here already. That's a nice cordial way to start off looking at the NECC this semester. So we'll see if the favorites in our minds keep it up. But some really stacked groups and some NECC demons in Group A especially. So I'm looking forward to watching and streaming that. I'll be streaming NECCs every Wednesday that I possibly can this semester. So follow the Twitch channel and subscribe to YouTube, whatever you do. But down in Division 2, we can run through this. Not quite as stacked, unfortunately, but Division 2 East A. You got Conestoga, Fuel, Robert Morris, Fisher Navy, Shawnee State, UNCC, Waterloo, Mount Union. Should be a fun one with some of these Shawnee State, UNCC, Fisher Navy top 48 matchups.
You're better than me. I really do think Fisher should have no issues making their way through this one. If they go to Game 7 with any of these teams, or if they lose a series, that's a mistake. That's an issue on their end. Again, purely on paper, Fisher Navy should destroy everybody else. And again, for those of you who do not know, that is Fowles, Adam, and Tallybird. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I don't think any of these other teams can put a hand up to them.
Yeah, I want to hold out hope for Shawnee State and UNCC, but you never know with those boys. Unfortunately, it's a bit up and down. So we'll see there. But here in Group B, already some results. Bruton Parker JV 4-0ing the UCF Knights last night. And then you got KSUB, shout out Dylan and the boys, Winthrop Academy, Florida Southern, Daytona State, and South Carolina. How on earth has East B gotten this stacked when East A is a little less so?
It's not a little less so. It's night and day between East A and East B. And again, I said it before we got into the NECC groups and the results of the promotion. I said NECC has a bad history of not balancing out groups and divisions. And unfortunately, this is probably, I would argue, a top 3 in the last 4 years. Probably a top 3 worst kind of seeding differential in terms of why this grouping of teams found its way into here. But I will say there's a lot of new look teams who get a chance to prove themselves. Bruton Parker JV with Manny leading that team now, a clean 4-0 against UCF. Like, they get a chance to prove themselves against a lot of very talented teams. Daytona State is going to get to kind of defend Division 2. I think that they're in a good place to do it as long as they keep on. USC left a lot to be desired, and so did Florida last semester. Had really big upsets at times, but then had really confusing losses at times. So they get a chance to prove themselves. And then my favorite storyline personally is K Frost doing his grad program with Florida Southern. Southeastern. Finally, Astro gets a super high level teammate, and they get to really, really prove themselves every single week. There's not really such thing as a free matchup. And again, I hate saying this because I know Dylan's in chat. I think that the only kind of like the two teams at the bottom who are going to be really fighting every week, it's going to be UCF and Kennesaw B. Now, granted, those are SEL teams, so for their sake, I hope they have a great season. But where does the skill cutoff come in this group? I think it comes at the bottom too.
I mean, this is a no excuse type of group for the teams that want to rise towards the top of like the top 33 to 48 range, because right now, and we'll talk full rankings in a bit, but like Daytona State, South Carolina, Florida Southern, Winthrop Academy, BPCU at JV, and if Kennesaw State B pulls some results, maybe they're in the conversation for top 48, but like all of these teams essentially have the potential to be in the top 48, and these are the type of teams you have to beat if you want to rise to the top of that range and stay in the top 48. So this is the perfect sort of resume group for every single one of these rosters, and you don't get a week off against any of these any of the fellow teams in this group. So honestly, say what you will about the lopsided seating here between East A and East B, I am all for this East B group because we get quality matches week in and week out. So with that in mind, do you want to check in on West Central?
Oh man, my favorite part, where West Central becomes a mix of East teams and South teams. But hey, you know what? Locationally this year, they actually did a fairly decent job.
It's not bad.
I can't hate at all. I will say, for San Diego State, outside of their match against Southeastern Oklahoma, am I missing another word there, or is that correct?
Southeastern Oklahoma State, I do believe.
That's what I'm forgetting is the state part. Anyways, that's a really, really bad pull because you're going to play probably the next best team right here tomorrow. So good luck to them. But if they win that matchup, it should be San Diego State for free here in West Central. Now, granted, still some small storylines to follow. Like Grand Canyon has a really long history in CRL representing the West, and they actually had a few surprising wins last semester to where I honestly didn't think they were going to do that well, but they actually did perform pretty well in the Division II side of things. So looking forward to see how they do. Some new look teams with UND Green. I believe that is California Santa Barbara.
Bang on.
Okay. Funny enough, I've seen that team play in the last few weeks. I actually am going to be really intrigued to see how they do representing the West Side. And then for Texas A&M, that's a roster that has always kind of found a way to play well. I mean, even if it's anything as small as CCS to, like SEL or whatever regional leagues, like they always tend to show out. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they are a Division II team. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if they're there yet, but where better to prove it than a smaller, kind of more controlled West Central group.
I mean, honestly, I think this is exactly where Texas A&M should be. I think West Central of any CC Division II is the perfect spot for a squad like them. That if they can beat the West Coast competition like this, and hold their own against San Diego State, then I think we start talking about Texas A&M with a little bit more respect than just kind of the hopeful that these fun players to watch will actually do something in the CRL space. But that's West Central A. West Central B, still pretty fun. You got Illinois, peaceful in the gang. Indiana, who we're hoping for better results from. GVSU, MTSU's okay, but they've forfeited week 1. This is an FF win for Iowa Western. Purdue, Waterloo. Yeah, this is kind of looking like Indiana's group. It should be.
Well, I mean, again, what a miserable first week pull, because if they are going to lose this group, it's going to be because Illinois gets this good start. I mean, even looking at all the rest of the teams, like, Waterloo and Purdue have had good moments, but I don't think they can touch Illinois or Indiana. And Grand Valley State has been relevant in a few years. I think it should be those two teams fighting out for it. I just hate they have to play so soon.
I don't know. I think GVSU, Purdue, and Waterloo are all the type of team. And honestly, I think Illinois is in the same kind of boat as those 4 teams, where, like, they're pretty mediocre on a regular basis, but they have the ability to peak and surprise a squad like Indiana that, especially if they're starting slow, could get caught off guard by a team that is all of a sudden hitting some insane shots on you. And So I think this should be Indiana's group, but, same as San Diego State. Maybe they're caught sleeping one week and they end up dropping a series that they shouldn't. And hopefully it's more of a wake-up call than a troubling sign. But honestly, we got some clear favorites, but some teams that could pull the upset here.
Yeah, well, and again, NECC actually put West Central teams in West Central, so that's a win.
We'll take it.
We'll take that.
All right, let's move along to NACE, because I gotta shout out whoever their graphic designer is right now. I totally stole this graphic from their Discord, but if you post a graphic with just a Discord linked file, then I'm gonna take it, because this is a clean looking graphic, and these are the Super Conference matchups this week. And I figure, we need to use this graphic because it looks so good anywhere other than the NACE socials and NACE Discord, because it deserves to be seen by more eyes than what those locations probably garner. But we got Akron versus Cumberland. That is the main Akron team, with Milio now in the starting lineup. We got Ball State versus Winthrop. Yes, it is that Winthrop team, not just a league calling them Winthrop because they're the best Winthrop team the league has got. Then you got Baylor and West Virginia, which should be a really good one. Top 5 matchup right there. And then a classic ETSU and Bruton Parker matchup. SEL classic there. You wanna pick a matchup to start with, TJ?
Okay, I want to say Baylor and West Virginia for last. I'll go ahead and say that. Let's start with Bruton Parker ETSU.
All right. Well, I think the big narrative for Bruton Parker ETSU, two teams that know each other pretty well, have made changes this semester, and both maybe look a little bit worse at the moment after making those changes than they did in the fall. So this is a good starting point for whichever one of these teams are able to come out of this with a win.
Well, and I also will say, talking about those roster moves, like with ETSU, they still have an absurdly strong duo that should be able to handle the flow of this game. So I'm not overly concerned at that. I think the ETSU should come out of this with a win simply because of Leo and Kasai. As for Bruton Parker, if you want to prove us wrong, and by us I more so mean me, if you want to prove us wrong, or I say us again, my bad, prove me wrong, because I've been hating, I'm not gonna lie, on my own state a little too hard. If you're gonna prove somebody wrong, you better do it for that matchup. You better do it tonight against ETSU, because all of the other matchups in this group only get harder for Bruton Parker, in my opinion. And if they don't win this one, I worry about a potential winless kind of split to NACE.
It is kind of a must-win for them, because I'll show everyone else. This isn't in the graphic, but it's on the website. Actually, I won't show you. I'm just going to tell you, so I hope you're listening. St. Clair is also in the Super Conference. They're on a bye this week, so you have to keep in mind that these teams will play St. Clair as well. But yeah, this is kind of a must-win for those two, because I don't even know what your next easiest matchup might be. Like, Cumberland's kind of in a bit of roster shake-up limbo at the moment, so maybe Cumberland. But man, when the rest of your slate is Winthrop, Baylor, and West Virginia, already 3 top 5 teams, and then you got Ball State and Akron, who have made changes, yes, but changes that they're confident are going to improve them. Like, man, you're in for a really tough Super Conference, because the rest of these matchups we're going to talk about are absolute bangers.
Well, on that note, let's move to another roster move, switcheroo kind of banger. Let's talk Akron Cumberland on the other side of this graphic. With Akron, Patty steps down to gold. Milio, with years and years of high-level experience, both in RLCS and in CRL with Akron. Akron, I think, has made a very good roster move, especially with Patty graduating. There must be something along the lines of Patty not grinding as hard, or maybe wanting to play a different style. Who knows, right? But still, Bullseye, ultra consistent. 5-up. Ultra game changer in terms of how he's been able to kind of make his way through CRL. They've had some struggles over the last year as CRL got better. So with this NACE Superconference, it's a great opportunity for them to prove themselves further. Cumberland, a team that had some huge CRL wins, but again, in terms of roster moves and in terms of arguable upgrades or downgrades, Nex and Hotshot, at least as of right now, are not in the same boat. Now, granted, if Cumberland have been grinding with Hotshot for the last week, they do have a few wins where you can argue Hotshot is up to that level. But this NACE season, this game against Akron, this is a real test. This should be an Akron win, but man, Hotshot's going to have to play like a demon.
Yeah, and I'm excited to actually get some tape with Cumberland. They were playing the SEL tier assignments with their new roster with Hotshot in it, and I need to see any of them actually playing. So this should be a good series for them. I really hope that everyone saves replays from these sets. But Ball State, really good test against Winthrop here, because Winthrop, you know, we don't know if they're going to have Garrett G or play with Phantom again for a lot of these series. It was about half and half last semester, if I remember correctly. And so this is a big opportunity for Ball State either way. And you're getting Phoebes more and more high level reps with Superconference every single week. So I'm excited to see how they develop and how they start with this matchup against the defending runners up, thanks to a Game 7 overtime in CRL last semester. So this could be kind of a big shock for Winthrop to come back into NACE this semester and have some upgraded competition.
Well, of all the years that Winthrop and the NACE side of things, they need to lock Garrett in every week, this is a super conference where there should be no excuses. I've made my personal opinions known about how if Garrett is not going to play NACE, how big of a deal that is for Winthrop and kind of how unacceptable it is. If Phantom plays, great on him. He proved himself multiple times last semester, and there's no doubt that if he subs in tonight, he could probably do it again. I know BK's in chat as well. I've talked highly about Phoebes than most people have. Most people don't even know who Phoebes is. I've talked absurdly highly about Phoebes ever since he was in high school coming out of this. And unfortunately for BK, I still think Winthrop, even with Phantom, I still think they come out of this one alive. They were too good to end the semester off. And even if you're comparing Oath and Guh to Percy and T-Corel, I got to give it to Percy and T-Corel. I give it to Winthrop.
I don't know. Ball States have been grinding. They were grinding at the end of last semester, and I think Phoebes is going to slot in well. And honestly, of all the series that I'm looking at for upset potential, I think this has the best amount of upset potential. Because I mean, honestly, the rest of them, I don't know if I'd call massive upsets. Like Cumberland beats Akron. I mean, Akron hasn't played a ton of officials yet together, if any at all, with me in the lineup. Though he's gotten experience with the A team in the past, so maybe that's a potential upset if Cumberland wins there. Burton Parker and ETSU, I'd put around the same level at the moment. And West Virginia and Baylor, I think WVU are definitely underdogs here, but if they come out and stun Baylor early on, I don't think it's a big deal. But Ball State, I think, really have upset potential against Winthrop, and I'd wager on them this week. But West Virginia and Baylor is the marquee matchup. I don't think anyone's going to argue us on that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's why I wanted to save it for last. It's also a school who's made some huge roster moves. Two of the biggest improvements out of the select few teams who can still say they are probably predicted to finish top 8. In terms of this one, I don't know exactly where you start. I'll talk about the roster moves first. Baylor obviously finds a way. JT played great last semester. Two-time Collegiate Exclusive Player of the Week. Really, really incredible, for him to step in and do what he did. But bringing in Zanil, it's night and day with Andy Hoxer and Zanil, who are also playing in our LCS together, versus Andy Hoxer and JT. I have really big expectations for this team, and from what we've seen out of Baylor in the PEC, I think they're going to keep those expectations high throughout NACE. Now, granted, West Virginia, another huge roster move. The era of Angel and Tool has kind of passed. Now we're officially into the Gyro era, and now we get Matter, Gyro, Cosmic. This is the best West Virginia team that they have ever put forward. And if you're going to win a matchup in Super Conference, if you're going to lock in a top 2 spot, you win this match against Baylor tonight. However, I got Baylor.
Yeah, Baylor played Boise State last night in the PEC, and that was a treat to watch. Baylor was so aggressive against Boise State. They were playing so close to one another in offense, investing a ton of resources, really up close in Boise's face, 50ing for each other constantly. It was a micro game lover's dream, and Boise kept it close. First of all, I was impressed by that, but Baylor ended up winning 3-1 over Boise State, and it was a really fun set to watch. I'll probably be watching the replays in between the end of this podcast and the start of the Tri-City Slam qualifiers, so everyone can stick around for that while TJ has his scrim to prepare for the bracket. But that's NACE, and man, I'm so glad the Super Conference this semester is as stacked as it is.
I'm more kind of speechless, honestly, that NACE put together such a great slate. Not to mention a great slate, but at all levels. Like there are levels within Super Conference, and I think that Bruton Parker ETSU top 20, top 15, top 25 versus literally some of the best teams that we're predicting to find their way through a CRL. I mean, Baylor, I think, and I'm not going to spoil too much, but Baylor is extremely high in my rankings alongside Winthrop and West Virginia. So I'm excited to try and watch those games tonight. Considering how UGA does in Tri-City, so I might be watching all of them.
All right, well let's keep it rolling along. So you do have that to get ready for in about half an hour. So let's talk about the more soup section. This is gonna be like PCL. We've got SCL to talk about, a little NEL preview, some CCS as well, and as ECAC gets started, it'll be in this section as well. But we're gonna talk about notable PCL matches this week, and honestly, there's only one, and it's George Mason versus Auburn Navy. My boy Spectral, TJ, who we've casted, I believe, at the high school level, went to Athens High School in the state of Alabama. He's the new captain of Auburn Navy. And yeah, they're going up against the team that was in the PCL Grand Finals on land last semester. But I've got my my Auburn boys winning this one. How about you?
Is this the George Mason full roster?
Oh, you can't even see that on screen. Yeah, it is.
I don't know how to say this. I love a good Auburn shout out. We make a good UGA shout out every once in a while too. I love that we shout out our schools, but yeah.
If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. We all know you're back in Auburn, but you don't want to say it in front of T-Han, so it's all right.
I'm just gonna say it's gonna be Belt. It's going to be Belt.
All right, T-Han, you hear that? TJ's got Auburn beating GMU down. I'm excited to watch it, but we do have some verbal results to talk about. The Southeastern Esports League had their tier assignment, and there were some sprinklings of good series here, some decent best of fives, because Cumberland and East TSU played. That went to 5. Cumberland ended up winning that in game 5. Kennesaw State with Dylan subbing in for Flitz, or playing in place of Flitz, because that's what they do for the SEL. They beat Florida Southern 3-1. BPCU JV beat James Madison in 5, and then JMU got revenge later on in 5. And then there was one more. Florida Southern 3-0'd UT Dallas. That was a pretty big one. And Daytona State took ETSU to game 5, but ETSU ended up winning there. So if you want to dive into those, TJ, I can pull them up on screen, but I wanted to get those results out there at least.
Well, I mean, you're Mr. SCL for a reason. That's a very good point. I mean, I don't think you missed a beat there. I will say this. I think the bigger storyline coming out of this, and I've been ragging on KSUB too much, so I will say this to satisfy Dylan. Kennesaw still finding a way to go 5-1 pretty comfortably with Dylan subbing in for Flitz. It's really big for Kennesaw, really big for Dylan. I know he talked about he's been putting in 100 past 2. Good for Dylan, man. If he continues to improve and he gets to a 2K level player, which I believe he absolutely can be, then Kennesaw becomes a threat in every league that they play in, because they have a really good sub if that's the case. So to lose Flitz and still be at that level, a big shout out to how they're doing. Also, Bruton Parker, even though we rag on them a lot, and ETSU still find a way to go 5-1. Now, granted, those teams that I just named and Cumberland, I think that's the skill cutoff in terms of what the SEL is going to provide this year. Those 4 teams should be comfortably up there. And then in terms of kind of who's left to fight for the rest of the scraps, James Madison goes 5-1. I am always a GAD believer. They have produced some of the most exciting kind of low SSL to 2K recruits that we've seen in the last year, in my opinion. They do really good in that range, and I think they're going to be a huge threat in SEL, and I think they can make land once again. But you mentioned Florida Southern as well. A new look team, an older team than James Madison. They're going to be really fun to watch. And then in terms of some other I just want to throw in some other like kind of sleeper rosters. Yeah. Clemson A. I've scrimmed that team. I've played that team. I'm going to play Masao for the 10,000th time tonight in Tri-City Quals. I love Masao. Love Clemson when what they built. That team looks good. They look really good. Now, granted, if I beat them in Tri-Cities tonight, take that point away. But I expect them to handle it. They look really good. Oklahoma also looks really hot. Texas Arlington, even though I went to Game 5 overtime with them, Caribou and Random Shy still look like they haven't really lost a step. They have a brand new third. He was a little scared whenever he played us. I think once he gets out of his shell, he's got the mechanics. He's got the consistency. He's a really good player. I hate that I don't have his gamer tag up. I apologize. I can't pull up the roster page from where I'm looking. But really excited to see how they do. And then I'll throw a Bud's GSU mention in there, because if they can actually get their hours back, then big win. It's also Win a Dog for UTA.
Nice.
So thank you, Caribou, for shouting him out. Shout out Win a Dog. He looks good. I just hope he gets out of his shell.
Shout out Caribou for actually coming back. He's he took a semester off, but I'm glad to have Caribou back and competing for UT Arlington. So we'll keep tabs on that team for this semester especially. But one result I did want to bring up real fast: Daytona State going to Game 5 against ETSU. Winning games 2 and game 4 back and forth the entire time, with maybe some blowout games for ETSU here, 5-1, 6-1, but close game 5. And this is showing Daytona State or showing us that Daytona State is actually a pretty good team. I wasn't sure what to think about them, but Sullis, Smooth, and Gio, I saw, I think it was Byra asking about the roster in chat. And this is the team. So keep an eye on Daytona State. I think they are slowly grinding their way up into and through the top 48 at the moment. But that's SEL tier assignment. Not regular season quite yet. NEL is doing the same thing right now, where we sort out where the teams go. And we do have Akron Gold versus Indiana Tech playing on Thursday in that qualifier. So that's a banger that probably won't be streamed anywhere unless any of the players are doing it. But I wanted to make sure people know to keep track of that. So if any, I know there are a lot of Indiana Tech people in chat right now. See about getting live for that match, because that could be a good one. But what else do we have? CCS, Akron Gold went to 5 with Indiana. I talked about that. Akron Gold looked pretty sloppy. Indiana punished them a lot. And then Maryland beat Louisiana. I think it was a 3-0 with a couple of overtimes in CCS. And that was the highlight of last night's stream. So Maryland, hey, top 32 team potentially. They start off with a win as well.
Ever since even before they brought in Cozy P, they were a big sleeper team. And now that they brought in Cozy P, Maryland's got a real potential to do some damage as a D1 school and represent the space very well. I'm really excited to see how they continue to play within CCS. As for Akron Gold, Indiana, remind me, was that an Akron Gold win in 5?
Yeah, in 5.
Okay, again, Indiana, we mentioned it when we were talking about Indiana in NECC, had a pretty bad night. NECC had a decent showing in that CCS game. I mean, I remember you mentioning kind of before we started that it was more so like Indiana kind of countering Akron Gold. I remember you saying that, so I won't read too much into it. Akron Gold has been the CCS champions for a little bit, and for good reason. I expect them to hold that title as it stands right now, but CCS has gotten a lot better over the last few years.
And if anyone see Nation's message in chat, that is Syracuse's B team that A&M swept. Leagues like C3 and CCS list teams as their B team if you're going to talk about them in a CRL context, because you can't say A&M swept Syracuse and not expect me to correct that is the Syracuse B team that was swept there. Aqua and Nanosteer, still a good team, but A&M did beat them down last night. It wasn't all that close on stream. But let's move along, talking lands, because we want to get to rankings this week. You and I put a lot of time into our top 48s. So real quick, I'm going to put the Tri-City Slam qualifier bracket up on stream. TJ, I know you're playing in this a little bit later on. You got that Clemson match I'm excited about. But this is the bracket, and a little top heavy, I think, with this is Concord up here, not playing under the schools banner. But you got Winthrop Academy, Florida, Indiana Tech, BPCU JV, BPCU, and Conestoga as your top seeds here. JMU and Kaiser rounding out the top 9, and then everybody else is kind of fighting over scraps. Oklahoma, KSU B, Georgia State, CSUN, Indiana Tech B. Some decent teams that could pull off upsets tonight.
Yeah, I will say, whenever me and Nutty, shout out Nate, whenever we were sitting down at about 11, 12 o'clock last night going through and trying to seed this tournament, there is a hefty amount of kind of coin toss matchups that are going to come out of losers. I mean, even before that, like the Kaiser James Madison matchup, which is almost a full 99% guarantee that happens, that is a banger for both those teams. And
Went to
Kaiser,
7.
again, a team who had like kind of, miscellaneous results, but so did James Madison. It's a battle of consistency amongst those teams. Now, granted, Concord should steamroll their way into, the end of this one.
Probably.
So no shocker there if they make their way through that. But also some teams who we kind of mentioned earlier who can still prove themselves, like Oklahoma, like they should get a chance against Florida, but RIT is not a free matchup. Kennesaw B, that's a Kentucky team that still has some low SSL talent. I'm pretty sure all three of them are hovering around the 18 to 1900 range. So Kennesaw B, no freebie there. And then, continuing to go down, Georgia State, CSUN, you're going to be streaming that one, confirmed, I believe?
Yeah, confirmed. Georgia State, CSUN on my stream at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, if Georgia State loses a first-round matchup here, it's that would be the most Georgia State thing ever. Like, we're in February. I don't know how much they're playing. Like, they should win, but, we'll see. I'm more so excited for Indiana Tech B and Bruton Parker Orange. I'm sorry to the Tennessee fans. Indiana Tech B should be fine, but it should be Feed, Cloud, and Chippy. That is the correct roster. Look at me go. Against that Bruton Parker JV team, that should be a banger of a matchup. I think that'll be the best second-round matchup, potentially better than James Madison Kaiser. I'll make that argument right now. And then as for, us and Clemson, chat, I'm going to be honest. We're a bottom 4 seed in this event. That's also why I was helping seed the event, so no bias, I promise you. Also, I am the only rank B player on my team. Now, granted, love my guys. I think we can beat Clemson. I think we could make an upset or two. Our dream is 2-2 tonight. We'll see how that goes. But honestly, for Conestoga, they got a pretty dang good pool here, having to go against the winner of that. I know, Wade, I'm getting to it, Wade. I'm getting to it. I saved it for last. Northeastern. I am a Harlequin fanboy. I love that kid to death. He is absurdly talented, but also we get the new look Warner roster that Wade's always talking about. So I'm really intrigued to see how this one goes out, because Molecular and Kitty Kit had a decent showing last semester, I should say. This roster's gotten a full semester looking pretty dang good. So you know what, Wade? Best of luck to you, but I have a pretty good feeling we'll see each other in losers.
You got the Wade Spade Warner parade starting off with Northeastern, and then you're running face first into a Bruton Parker team that should still beat them. All the negativity surrounding BPCU at the moment, but the question I've got for you, TJ, is the top 6 seeds here, and let me make sure I get this correct. Is Concord, Indiana Tech, Bruton Parker, and then Winthrop Academy, Florida, and then it would be Conestoga next, I believe. Those are the top 6 seeds. Do you think those 6 seeds qualify into the 6 spots that go to LAN?
The issue is, I'm going to pull up the bracket on my end, because if you do the check mark by projected, we can kind of get an idea what the losers bracket should look like. So I will say this. You can scroll back up top very quickly. Florida, Winthrop. That is a tough one. It should be Winthrop based on recency bias between those two teams, but I can see it going either way. Concord, lock. I think Bruton Parker and Indiana Tech, locks. Like, without question, they should be totally fine making it through. So Winthrop, Florida, that's a really important game, because now as you scroll down, you're going to see that losers bracket only gets worse. Like, Florida potentially having to go against a James Madison that's only going to get hotter throughout the day if they make it to that point, or a Georgia State or an Indiana Tech B. Again, teams who are going to get back-to-back games. I'm a little concerned about that top side. As for the bottom side of this bracket, you know what? Give me Bruton Parker Orange. I think Manny can pull his team through. I really think he can do it. I'll even go further. I think Oklahoma beats Conestoga. Give me that. I really do think that this side's going to be pretty messy, but this should be Bruton Parker. I think Manny can do it.
All right. Well, it's a no top 6 making it through from TJ. I'm inclined to agree. That bottom bracket's just going to be too messy, but we do have to move along. Quick thing to note: Queen City Clash LAN in Cincinnati, Ohio, hosted by the University of Cincinnati. $1,000 prize pool. Make sure you know about this. Dates and times, I'm not going to read them out because we're not going to spend long on this. We'll cover these qualifiers as they come. First qualifier is tomorrow, February 4th is what that says. There are 3 of them. Then you got the LAN event later on this month. So if you're looking for a LAN opportunity in or around Cincinnati, then this is the place to go. It's been operating for a long while now. These guys know what they're doing. Definitely check it out. So Queen City Clash, and That's what we got for LAN coverage at the moment. We'll keep the coverage up all throughout the semester, but we got rankings to talk about, TJ. We skipped this last week. We ran out of time, and let's get into it. Since I know you got your scrim here in a little bit to get into, so I'm gonna pop them on screen if you wanna shift to, I think, your left. To center your face a little bit more, but the rankings are what mattered. I got to the top 32 pulled up right now, and I'll scroll down as we go along. But we honestly agree in the majority of our rankings, and I think for this being mostly a preseason rankings, I'm pretty impressed about that.
I think we did a pretty dang good job. I mean, after the last episode and after we filmed our roster video, we both kind of sat down and you were like, well, I'm already doing my top 48 because you're Bepic. Of course you're going to do it. And so I'm sitting here, I'm like, yeah, it was Sunday. I was like, do I want to do a top 48? And so before class today, I spent my time making my top 48. So I'm actually pretty happy with this list. We share a few pretty even ranges, but I also think there's a lot of arguments we can have together about kind of the shape of things. And do you want to start at the top, or do you want to kind of skip over the guaranteed top 10-ish range?
The top 10 is pretty 12, set. I mean, 10. I don't think anyone's gonna really argue us. A little bit of a difference. You're a little bit higher on Akron Blue than I am. Bigger on Fisher a little bit. You didn't give Winthrop the courtesy number 1 with Maryville in number 2, and I'd probably change that out mine as well. I didn't do much tinkering with mine since Sunday, but with Maryville looking good in RLCS, I might be inclined to bump them up. But other than that, we're pretty dead on. And you got Cumberland at 15, and I think that is one of the bigger differences. 5 spots between Cumberland on your ranking and my ranking. You got some more belief in them than I do.
I mean, from what I have heard, Hotshot was playing this past week in SEL and also in some of the miscellaneous events we've seen Cumberland play. So from those results alone, I feel confident in Hotshot's development right now. And also, I've worked with Polar, for a few years. He's always been a good friend of mine. I really do think that Polar by himself can take on a lot of the talent around him. Now, granted, it's a very tough range to be in the top 20, to be between 10 and 20. This is a nightmare gauntlet type of range to be in. But also, I think the reason why I have Cumberland all the way up there compared to you having them so far down is because I am pretty dang low on rosters like Kennesaw, Indiana Tech, and Michigan State. Mm-hmm. So I think it's more of I'm lower on some of the previous teams above rather than Cumberland being really, really high. I view them well, but not absurdly well.
And then George Mason's another one that we've got a big difference between. 6 spots, actually, there. And I put a lot of stock in their PCL run, where after it was CRL Open 3, where they were the only team to take a series off of the hot Ball State squad at the time. And then they go into PCL and upset Akron on home turf, on LAN, in the Akron ballroom to advance to the championship there. And they lose against Northwood. But I really saw a lot of positives out of George Mason, and I think if Proto especially can keep his head up and his mental game strong, the George Mason's going to be better than kind of what they were in the fall.
That's a fair point, and again, this is one of those arguments that as I was making it, I was like, yeah, I'm willing to stand on this. And I think the reason why is because I view ETSU and George Mason in similar boats right now together. Is with ETSU and George Mason, you have 2 very dependable, very talented players, and then you have a change. I say change, but for GMU, it's been more of a kind of sustained change of having Proto in for the last semester now, getting like real reps. Mm-hmm. But I view them both in the same way, that you have 2 really dependable players who, for Leo and Kasai, I know what I'm getting out of them whenever they're going to show up because they play the game. They came all the way over here from EU. I know they're playing. But as for Krazix and Kinsey, I love Kinsey. I know he's playing. But when it comes to Krasix, I'm a little more concerned. There's a big question mark there in terms of what he brings every game. And for Proto, I still have a question mark with him too. Granted, the PEC result, I'll give them that. Maybe I'm hating there. But outside of that, I'm going to leave them here until I'm proven otherwise.
Yeah, and I'm not sure Krasix is actually... Okay, TN just confirmed it. Krasix isn't on the roster. He wasn't registered in a lot of their leagues that they're playing on, so I didn't have him on the spreadsheet. But Krasix won't be there. And so, I mean, the starting lineup for the end of the fall, when they had that uptick, was the memory Kinse Proto lineup. And so I don't think that change will affect them all that much. So I'm high on GMU to start the semester off, but we can keep moving along because we kind of realign and get pretty close to a similar ranking, especially down into the top 30 range, because we got Davenport Red, St. Clair Gold, Bruton Parker, Cleveland State, and then you've got San Diego State at 31, where I've got South Carolina. We just kind of swapped them. And I mean, this is where it starts getting a little bit weird, because these are all the teams that have had really good results, really high highs, but also some shocking losses. And I looked at that D1 promo tournament from Florida where they lose to St. Clair Gold, they lose to Winthrop Academy, and I dropped them a little bit for that to 35.
Yeah, it's very hard to rank this section. I think the bigger storyline that I have a huge issue with is the fact that Bruton Parker is almost going to fall out of the top 30. That's my bigger issue. Yeah. And like the fact that we both had them at 29, this is a storyline, and this is a conversation that's going to get real uncomfortable in the next month in terms of where Bruton Parker ends up based on how they grow or how they develop, or if they bring Manny back or if they don't, who knows, right? So, I want to make that point. And in terms of the rest, I am very high on San Diego State, again, mostly because of recency bias. Now, granted, the way that they've gotten a lot of this bias is because of their qualification for CECC, which was in a more fraudulent qualifier. I will admit to that, but I do believe after seeing this team live at DreamHack come all the way across the nation, still play a pretty dang good show, I'm willing to give them this heat in a good way for now. And then as for teams like Florida, where we also differ on, I'm a Florida believer. Now, granted, I am slightly biased because I have worked with Florida before in a coaching standpoint, very minimal, but also it was right before DreamHack. And so I know what this team is capable of. And granted, I think that maybe my bias is a little too strong for them right now, but I'm going to leave them there because I think on paper, I still like where they're at. And then as for the kind of, keeping on moving, we are both pretty dang low in Wichita State. I know that Boone made a comment on Twitter about that, yeah. But at the same time, it's like Wichita, you kind of gotta earn it. You kind of gotta prove it. Yeah. On paper, Wichita should be probably up about 4 to 5 spots in a good day. But until they prove it, that's where they're at. And then I think the biggest pick that I'll catch flack for, or maybe you, is looking at Fisher Navy and also looking at Winthrop Academy. I'm higher on Winthrop Academy right now than you are, but also Fisher Navy. I said this in your Twitch chat. They should be rising very quickly based on their roster alone, but who knows?
Yeah, Fisher Navy, Game 5 win over Bruton Parker JV. That's the result that scares me a little bit. Because, Tallybird is good. I was looking at her rank compared to Faust and Adam, and she is the highest ranked player on that team. And so she's taken kind of that Royales role, and I'm interested to see what that does to the ceiling of Fisher Navy. But yeah, they got to earn it. Same with Wichita State. I'm right there with you because their name value alone carried them a lot in the fall. When you're losing best of threes to Albright and Oklahoma in the same CRL Open, like you're going to drop a little bit. So I have no doubt Wichita State will. Well, I do have some doubts, but we'll see if they earn it. I need to see it from them. But what else do we have in this range? Anything crazy? Daytona State, I think, could rise pretty quickly. UTD, yeah, I've got them at 48. They lost to Florida Southern in SEL tier assignment, and it didn't look great. They look pretty flat. So I kept them in the top 48. I put Florida Southern in, and I honestly, I'm a bit scared for UT Dallas. Hopefully they get whipped into shape a bit.
Yeah, I'll be completely honest. I'm going to blame my pre-class brain. I did not catch that result between those two teams, so I would... As for the rest of the teams to fill this spot out, like Conestoga, I'm still kind of holding on to some of that Div 2 glory they were chasing last semester.
I'm losing you a bit, TJ. You're coming in and out with the audio. I don't know if it's me or you. Oh, actually, it's me. Okay, well, I'm gonna keep going with the podcast real fast.
I'm gonna be so for real with you, Bepic. I can't hear Bepic.
Dude,
oh,
my Discord is lagging out. Okay, you're gonna have to repeat some points right there because I lost you for a second.
Okay, all that I was saying was when
it just did it again. All right. It's not TJ. It's on my end. Yeah, TJ's gonna have to go into Twitch chats and and tell his points. My Discord's crashing right now. The podcast can see TJ talking, and they cannot hear him. So yeah, that's a fun little moment. I'm gonna restart my Discord because we're losing. Man, what is happening?
what it is. So
maybe my PC's dying, but yeah, this is about what we expect. We give our top 48 rankings, and technology actually decides to cut us off. Hold on a second, TJ. If you can hear me, I think my Discord's back. I'm gonna restart Discord because I think it's on my end. Okay, let me try something real fast because the podcast, you shouldn't notice too much other than me talking a bit much. But all right, so looks like we're back, and can you hear me all right?
I can hear you right now.
All right. Well, let's see how far this goes. You might have to repeat some points again. That was a fun clip, though. You were like, I gotta say is, and then it completely cut out. So let's hear it. Maybe the third time's the charm.
Okay. I guess I will. I guess.
Oh, dude, it's happening again. All right, well, those are our rankings, everybody. Top 48. You know, we agreed a lot more than I expected to, with the preseason being the preseason. But that does bring us to the end of the podcast here. I don't know why this is doing what it's doing at the moment. I even forgot to swap my overlay over to the top 48, but. We're gonna go ahead and
just chalk it up
and end right here. Yeah, we're gonna chalk it up. We're gonna be live next week, Tuesday. Don't know which time quite yet. We'll sort that out a little bit later on. But TJ's got a scrim to get to. He's got to prepare for the Tri-City Slam qualifier #1 because we got that LAN coming up here in several weeks now. But TJ, if you could hear me all right, thanks for being on the podcast as always. Thumbs up from everybody. I'm gonna go to a break and come back with some demo review and YouTube recording. But TJ's got to run. Good luck with your scrim, my man. Everybody, thanks for tuning into the podcast. Sorry about the technical difficulties at the end, but we'll be back in a little bit with the stream continuing right here. Peace out, everybody.